So when I first learned to add this note to my chords, I literally added every single time because it sounded nice to me and it sort of sounds like jazz-ish sort of, and I added every single time. And during that time when I was serving in the worship team, everything became a lot jazzy back then, and that's probably not too great of an idea all the time. And the note that I'm talking about is adding the seventh. We're going to talk about adding the seventh today. This is a series of videos where I go through how to add notes onto our basic triads. Last time we talked about adding the second, and if you haven't checked out that, go check out that video. Today we're going to talk about adding the seventh, and I thought it would be cool. Maybe we can take a simple tune, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We're gonna take that tune, or ABCD, the alphabet song. We're gonna take that tune and we're gonna start, adding those extensions into it, so to show you with a simple tune how it's gonna sound like, and then you can decide on your own for your context whether you want to start adding and incorporating these extensions on your own. And as always, there's gonna be PDFs of exercises and scores and studies like that for you to practice, so that you can get familiar with those extensions too. So make sure you check that. Check the link somewhere down there to find those exercises. So we're just gonna add the seventh one by one to each of the chords and see how they sound and how we can use them. So let's start from C major, our friendly key C major, and we're just going to go through each scale degree and add a seventh to it and see how it sounds and how we can use them. We start from the one chord, C, E, G. Here is our seventh. So 1, 3, 5, 6, 7. If we put it in the middle. So right away, I think you can tell that it sounds a lot more jazzier in that way. But the sound is also quite distinct. For me personally, I would use this sort of with care, because once you introduce the seventh into the one chord, it almost sounds a little Christmassy. It sounds a little like Christmas music almost. And if you end your songs on this one chord with the major seventh on it, then it gives off this very distinct jazzy sound, Christmassy sound. So this is something that I would just be a little bit more careful with using, but I certainly like the sound of using, and this is the one that I probably overused too much when I was playing back then. Let's go to the second chord, the two chord. The two chord is a D minor, and if we add a seventh to it, simply is here's 1, 3, 5, 6, 7. Then we put in the up in the middle, put a reposition up here. This is a D minor 7. It's also very pleasant, and it's not as sort of apparent, I feel like, as the one major chord. It's quite pleasant. It's quite warm feeling. I quite like that one. This is also one that can be used very, very often and very sort of freely in our pieces. Let's go to the three chord. The three chord is E minor. And the seventh is here. This is 1, this is 7, octave, and a 7. Very similar vibe to the D minor, of course, because it's a minor chord, so you have a minor 7 for both of those. Sounds good. Let's go to the 4 chord. 4 is a major, so when we stack the 7th on the top, this is 1, 3, 5, 6, 7. Here's a 7th, we get a major 7th. Similar to the one chord, this is a major 7th chord, so it would give off this quite distinct vibe of sort of a little bit melancholy kind of thing. So it's similar way of thinking about it as the one major chord. Just use it by taste. If you feel like the song needs a little bit Christmas kind of vibe to it, jazz kind of vibe to it, for sure add it in. And we get to our 5 chord, G, B, D, and if we add a 7th, this is the only major chord with a minor 7th. This is the dominant 7th chord. Both in classical and jazz world, it's quite commonly used. A very, very distinct sound, a little bit more classical sounding. For me personally, in contemporary music, I don't use this chord too often because I think that it gives off too much of a classical vibe. And we don't add enough extensions to this chord to make it jazzy, so it sort of feels like once you play this chord, you're almost throwing yourself into the classical world. So I know if a lot of us, we grow up in the classical world, we play those dominant 7 chords in exercises and practices, but if you're trying to get to contemporary music, pop music, worship music, or even jazz, I would probably advise you not to add a 7th, or if you add a 7th, don't just add the 7th, add a bunch of other stuff onto it just to make it a little bit more modern. Let's go to the 6th chord. This is our A minor. A minor, the 6th is over here. This is the A minor 7th. Again, very similar vibe to the D minor, to the E minor, because they're the same type of a minor chord. Very pleasant sounding, very warm sounding. Let's go to the last one. In pop music, the 7th chord is not a chord that we use often, but we'll just take a look at it anyway. Here's a B diminished chord, B diminished triad, with a 7th on top. This becomes a B minor 7, flat 5. If you use a jazz notation, we will call this minor 7 flat 5, or you will call this half diminished if you're coming from the classical world. In the pop world, we probably call it the minor 7 flat 5. It's a little bit more clear that way. Nothing wrong with that. That sounds perfectly valid. It's just that we don't use that too much in the pop world. And we get back to C. So hopefully you found out that by adding the 7th chord, it sort of achieves a function that's different from adding the 2nd. Last time when we talked about adding the 2nd did a thing where it would emphasize the quality of the triad. So if it was a major triad, it would make it more happy by adding, or warmer, it would make it more pleasant. And if we add a 2nd to a minor chord, it would make it darker, more dramatic kind of feel. But I feel like personally, the 7th sort of balances out the quality of the triad, so it sort of adds the opposite effect to it. Here's what I mean. So when we have a major triad, normally that's really warm, really pleasant, really sort of happy, for lack of better words, cheerful kind of thing. But when we add a 7th to a major triad, which becomes a major 7th chord, it becomes melancholy, right? It becomes sort of, it was happy, and then not so much anymore. Same thing here. If we take a F major, add the major 7th, it's sort of like you have second thoughts about something. It's almost like bittersweet kind of feel, right? If it's a minor chord and you add the 7th on it, all of a sudden it seems like it's not so bad anymore. Minor triad, and then it's like, oh. Well, it's not happy for sure, but it's not that bad. So that's how I feel like, how I understand it to be. Adding the 7th to a triad will make the quality of the triad sort of, it will balance it out to the opposite side. So it will sort of counteract it. If it's a more pleasant major triad, happy sounding, it will sort of make it a little bit more melancholy. And if it's minor triad, then it will sort of throw it to the other way, add a little bit more sort of warmth to it. That's how I understand it to be. Cool, so we just got that out of the way. Hopefully you got a little feel of what we're going to do now is just going to take Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and we're going to turn it into Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Jazz. Let's see how that's going to work. Before we do anything, let me write down the melody very quickly, so then I have something to work with. And I don't just make up some stuff and forget. Okay, so we know the tune. C key. Does it go once or twice? There's only once, right? It only happens the first time. I have to. I have to look that up. Okay, one sec. 20 years of playing piano and I don't know how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Oh, okay. Okay, it's an ABA. Okay. No, 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 do, 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 do. It goes right away. I thought it was two of these and then okay, anyway. I don't know for whatever reason I thought the first line happens twice. Well, learn something new every day. Cool. So what we're gonna do is we are going to put some chords in. Just for the sake of the exercise, I'm just gonna write some extra chords in, because so then we can hear a little bit more of different chords and different triads as opposed to the original chords, which I think is mostly just 1 and 5 and 4. So I'm gonna try to add a little bit more in so that we can hear when we add extensions how that's gonna sound like, and then you can sort of see how we can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with more chords. Let's see. Start with one chord. Let's go a little bit more contemporary. I like that. I'm actually going to here. I'm going to do this. I'm gonna half time the whole thing so that we don't have too many chords packed together. And I'm sort of feeling it that way too. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I've done is I'm just basically half the speed. Let's do with these 8 bars for now. Okay. So I started with a C chord, and then I went to A minor, and then I went to F, which is the 4. So 1, 6, 4, common. So and then I went to 3, which is E minor, and I added a little A minor in the middle, and then I did D minor, and then I climbed it up, and then E minor, and then F, and then G, C. There we go. So I think we hit every single note. Of the key, other than the 7ths, which is good. So then we can hear how they sound like. Just one more time now. Why don't I play the original one, if I can remember how it goes, and then I'll play this one just so you can see how it sounds like. Actually, I don't know how the original chords go. Must be something like this. I mean, it can't be too far off from that. Let's hear the new chords. So let's try this. What we're going to do is we're just going to add 7ths to all of them. We're just going to add 7ths to all of them everywhere we can. I'm just going to add it in and see how it sounds like. Okay. Actually, I can just write this down here. So I'm going to add. It's going to become a major 7th, A minor 7th, F major 7th, and then E minor 7, E minor 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7th, and then G7, and then C major 7. You'll probably notice that the major 7s are pretty obvious, just like we said, and then the minor 7s are a little bit more sort of hidden. They sound pretty normal. Here it is, the C major 7 at the beginning. So hopefully you notice that it sounds a little bit more jazzy, I guess. It's actually not like I know if you're a jazz major for whatever reason, if you're a jazz musician, you train up in a jazz school, and you're sort of cringing and you're getting mad at me for calling this jazz. I apologize in advance. I know this is not jazz. You don't call this jazz by adding a 7th chord to it, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds okay. it sounds Christmassy. Okay, it sounds Christmassy. I think that's a little bit better. Anyway, so you probably noticed that the major sevenths is a lot more obvious once we add them in, and that's part of where the sort of, I guess, the Christmas vibe comes to be. One other thing to note is the major sevenths, especially that C major seven over here, this one, it gives this half step below the melody. And I don't think that sounds too good. It's like a similar reason that we had last time when we added the seconds. Some of the notes, they end up making a minor second rub. And this one is sort of the same thing here. Because the melody line is a half step above the seventh chord, in these cases, it sort of makes a sort of awkward rub with it. And I personally, I don't like it. And in the jazz world, they sometimes they avoid that half step rub as well. So for me, whenever your melody line, if you have a melody line, is a half step above any of your chord extensions, I avoid most of the time. I avoid adding them. And for this case, I would probably not add the major seventh in the one chord. Again, it's personal preference. I feel like that rub is a little much. But anyway, and then we got to the A minor 7. The G here is already built in as the seventh of the chords. Here it is, 1, 3, 5, 7. So that's pretty nice. On the F major, this is the normal F major. Sounds quite sort of triumphant kind of feel. And then if we sub the root here with the 7, this is what it sounds like. I like it a lot. E minor 7. Just move the whole thing down. Here it is. This is the root. This is the 7th. You just hold that top note down, and you get the minor 7 too. And then here's the D minor 7. E minor 7th. This is okay-ish. I mean, I probably wouldn't. I'm not a big fan of it, but it's not as bad as the half step. And on the major 7th, the melody on the top. Here's the G7. Again, I don't know if you hear what I'm hearing, but I feel this to be a little bit too classical-ish. It sounds too plain. If again, so it's either you don't add the 7th, or you just pile everything on. And if I pile everything on, it would probably sound something like this. I'll probably just add the 9 in, maybe, or. Yeah, so that's the 7th. Now, just for the sake of the exercise, let's try to add some 9s or the 2s in it. So that's what we did last time, right? So let me just quickly write in some 9s in here. I'm going to add it to the minor here. Maybe here. Turn it to a 9. Turn that to a 9. Not that one. Not the E minor 7. We don't add 9s on the 3 chord because of that minor second rub. We talked about that last time. Probably not the D minor. Not the E minor. F major 9. Let's turn that G to a 9. C major, why not? Let's do that. So for the D minor here, well, actually, why don't I play it first? Here is with some of the 9s added in. The C major, I'm not going to add anything. Go through slowly. Here's C major, A minor, A, C, E, that's the root. Here's the 9 squeezed in, or the 2, major 7 on the top, minor 7 on the top. Again, now we have all of those together. F major 9, here's F, 3, 5, 7, 9, or 2. Quite pleasant. Now it gets a little bit more jazzy. Here we don't add the 2 on the E minor, the 3 chord. Not that, the 3 chord. Because of that, right? The minor second rub. Here's the 2. Almost sounds like you played something wrong. So we took that out. just a minor 7 chord, A minor 9 again, D minor. So for the D minor 7, I also didn't add a 9 because the melody is on the F. If we add the 2 or add the 9, then it creates this half step rub again. So for those cases, I opted out for it. Nothing on the E minor and the F major 9. Very nice. Here's the G9. So that is Twinkle Twinkle Little Jazz. I'm gonna put that up in the. I'm just gonna, you know, this is a little chicken scratch here. I'm just gonna tap that out in the score and put it into the link below so that you can get access to that. But probably what I'll do is maybe for the next coming videos when I talk about more extensions, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this, and then we'll add more extensions to it and see how it sounds like. Maybe after a while we will come up with something that's absolutely insane, and nasty if we, you know, continue with this a little bit more. Anyhow, so I have some exercises for you that I've written out just to work on the 7th chord. So just go check that out yourself. Make sure you are familiar with where to find the 7s, how to find the 7s. You're gonna find an exercise to do that. I also, if you are from the worship people, I have taken a couple of pieces that I've sung, or that we have sung recently, and I think it's popular, like Jesus at the Center. I think I'm gonna do Blessings, and maybe a couple of other tunes from Elevation or Hillsong, and then I'm just gonna write out some simple voicings, and then I'm going to put in the 7s and some of the 2s in it. And I'm gonna put it out onto the PDF so you can look at it, and practice it, and maybe see whether you like it or not, right? So take all those and practice, and I will see you next. Oh, you know what? Just for fun, I'm going to add some beats, add some chords onto that Twinkle Twinkle Little Jazz, and I'm gonna let you hear it right now.